Hello, I'm Nathan Carlin. This is Life and Work. Life and Work is a series where we talk to scholars and intellectuals about the connections between their public scholarship and their personal lives. Life and Work is supported by the McGovern Center for Humanities and Ethics. Today we're going to be speaking with Dr. Christine Slobogin. She's an assistant professor of health humanities and bioethics at the University of Rochester School of Medicine and Dentistry.
Yeah.
Christy, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really, really excited to be here.
Yeah. So tell me about how you got into academia.
Yeah. So even before I knew what it actually meant, I wanted to be a professor. So like 8th grade, I think I remember saying that that's what I wanted to do with my life.
Why in 8th grade? Yeah.
So my dad is an academic. He's a law professor, so very different from what I do. But, I would go and visit his office, and he had all these books, and I loved books, and it just seemed like, it just made sense to me. I was like, yeah, I love school.
Yeah.
I love to read.
Mm-hmm.
I like writing, even though I find it incredibly hard.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad had kind of always instilled this idea that learning how to be a good writer is like the most important thing that you can learn.
Interesting.
In school.
Yeah.
Like being able to communicate effectively, because so many people have trouble with that, or, it's a good way to get your points across, or like to be able to get your points across is really important.
Yeah. He saw the value of that as a lawyer and as a professor.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I was like, right, well, I'll try to do that then.
Yeah.
So I knew I wanted to be an academic. Again, not really knowing what that meant, actually. And so I really loved English. Like I said, I'd love to read. And then senior year of high school, I was very lucky that my school had an AP art history class.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd done all the history courses. I loved them. I'd done all my English courses. I loved them. Did art history with this.
Just because you're curious, or just like why did you decide to take that?
I knew I loved history.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, this is just history with pictures.
Oh, another history.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
With more pictures in the reading.
Yeah.
And so, which means fewer pages, right? No.
Right. Yeah.
So I took that and had a phenomenal teacher named Dr. Levine. And I just fell kind of head over heels for art history, for visual analysis, for kind of understanding, what the different historical movements were, the differences between artist style, I found really fascinating. And I loved it. It was a very, very hard class. It was ancient to contemporary.
Yeah.
And, but I learned a lot. Sometimes I think, that was the most I ever knew about art history, because I had to study for that big AP exam, and I knew everything.
Yeah.
And, now, as you go through school, you get more specialized. And
Yeah.
But anyway, phenomenal teacher.
And you at that time, did you feel like you loved art history more than regular history?
That's
then?
when I was like, oh, this is...
Yeah.
I don't think I knew I was a visual person before that.
Interesting, yeah.
And then I was like, no, this feels right.
Yeah.
And I loved, we would have these assignments where she called them, what did she call them? I call them close-looking assignments now when I assign them. I can't remember what she called them. But where we would have to go into a museum, see a work in person, and then sit in front of it for an hour.
Yeah.
And write your 2-page analysis of the piece after having really closely looked at it.
Yeah.
And I found that really, I don't know, I loved doing that.
Yeah. Do you feel like you were just so engaged with the material, or do you feel like it was like an attachment to Dr. Levine? Was it more about Levine, or was it more about the material itself?
Well, I had Dr. Levine in European history,
too.
So
you already had?
Yeah.
Okay,
And so I also knew I liked her style, but...
so it was definitely the material.
It was definitely the material. Yeah.
Sure.
And I just really loved it. And that's also when my love of, going to museums started. And I will spend, hours in a museum now. partially because it's my job and partially because I love to do it.
Yeah.
And so I, went into college knowing that I loved art history and I loved English. And, but, those are the majors that kind of people make fun of, like, what are you going to do with an art history degree?
Did your parents say that to you?
Yeah,
No,
yeah, for sure. Like,
did they say, why don't you do engineering or something?
No, well, they knew I wasn't going to do science. Although I did like biology, but that I feel like is the most humanities of the sciences. I don't know why.
Oh, okay,
So that one made more sense to me. But no, my parents were like, well, what if you minor in business administration or something like that? And so to kind of maybe appease them, my first semester of college, I signed up for a computer science class.
Okay.
And before I even went to one of the classes, I was like, what am I doing? And I swapped it out for a history of modern art class. And I'm glad I did. I was like, I knew myself, even at 18. I was like, you know what, I don't want to take computer science. I probably would have learned a lot.
Right.
And I probably would have found things to love in it. But, I took econ classes in college. I took a bunch of theology classes. I tried to broaden out. But I took that modern art class. I was like, okay, this is definitely what I want to do.
Yeah. That's remarkable clarity for an 18-year-old.
I just think I couldn't imagine doing anything else. I was like, well, if I'm here to learn and to also enjoy my learning, I'm going to take art history classes. Anyway, so did that. I ended up majoring in both art history and English. So the two majors that people make fun of.
Right.
And so I learned those. I think really helped each other actually. Because there's some parallels in the methods of both of those fields, and I also, English. I wanted to do that major because I was like, this is what will help me to be a good writer.
Sure. Yeah.
And I loved that.
There was a more tangible skill with English, and the passion was definitely with art history.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, art history, it also, looking and writing, those things kind of complement each other. So you learn how to look in art history, you learn how to read and write in English. And those are the things that I do in my job now.
Sort of close looking and close reading.
Close looking and close reading, absolutely. And I loved both of those courses a lot. But I think it was junior year, so I'd taken all these classes, Renaissance art history, Baroque art history. I took like an architecture of the Islamic world class. And then junior year, I took this class called Art and Medicine, which was kind of like the aha moment for me.
Yeah.
I, taking all those other art history classes, I was like, well, everything that could have been said about Michelangelo has already been said. Like, how am I supposed to find? I know that's not actually true, but people are reinventing.
Sure.
These histories all the time, but if that's what it felt like to me as an undergrad, I was like, how am I supposed to be original in these spaces? And then with art and medicine, I was like, oh my God, this is a whole new world of kind of the applied side of art and visual culture.
Yeah. Was this your first sort of encounter with medical humanities?
Yes, I think it was.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was called that.
Okay. Yeah, right,
at the time, you know.
Yeah.
I was just taking this art and medicine class, and I also again had a phenomenal professor. Her name was Karen Hammerschlag, and that's when I really saw kind of the potential for the ways that art can help us see what the human body has been and continues to be in culture and in our perceptions of ourselves, how it can be used in medicine, also how art uses medicine. And I just found it absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, I can see how medicine uses art. It would seem like it would be start or focus anyway with anatomy. Is that right?
Right, yeah. So, and that's one of the things that we talked about a lot in art and medicine was how artists were used to create, through the centuries, these really beautiful anatomical atlases, but then also how teaching anatomy was really important in art schools. And so there you have that kind of reciprocal relationship between art and medicine. And that definitely is a big part of the relationship between the two fields, and something that I still teach a lot. And it's important to, show medical students how we visualized the body in the past and how that's different from today. But there are also all of these other fields beyond anatomy in which art has been vital.
Okay. Yeah.
So like one of the one of the articles that I read in the art and medicine class, which profoundly affected my trajectory, was on facial injury in the First World War. And my first book is on facial injury in the Second World War. So we can see the kind of through lines there.
Yeah, yeah.
But kind of how artists were brought into surgical wards to, not only create diagrams of the surgeons, but also to make portraits of these patients, both with their initial injuries and after the surgeries that were purported to cure them. And I think art brings a lot of, even when it's purported to be objective, like photography, it brings a lot of these really fascinating like subjectivities and slippages into the narratives that medicine holds up. And so we saw the ways that artists could kind of exhibit a different truth or a parallel truth to what was happening in the medical realm. And, those portraits of facial injuries I thought were really fascinating also in relation to, the art history classes that I'd been taking, because there's a lot of tension about whether or not they were actual portraits. If you're drawing a portrait of someone with an injury, is that still their face, or are you focusing on the injury? And I thought that kind of theoretical conundrum was really interesting.
Yeah. Like sometimes, like in the wider kind of debates about in the field, the history of the field, and things like that, there's this idea that the humanities sometimes are viewed as sort of like a handmaiden to medicine, kind of,
right.
Or should the humanities sort of be more critical, sort of medicine and things like that? Is there a similar thing in art? Like, has art been, kind of like a handmaiden to medicine, or can art be more critical and things like? Is there a similar kind of debates, or?
Yes, definitely. There's a recent article actually that came out in BMJ Medical Humanities. And it's by Fiona Johnstone and Susanna Birnoff, who was my PhD supervisor. And I'm going to blank on the title, but it was something like, what can art history do for the medical humanities? And it has this argument that, okay, art in the medical humanities isn't just there in the service of biomedicine. It's also there to, like I said, kind of reveal these subjectivities.
Yeah.
And art can also benefit a lot from medicine. It's not just medicine benefiting from art. So like you've got, like the first example that comes to mind is this photographer, Jo Spence, a British photographer who coined the term, I believe she coined the term, phototherapy. And she like depicted her journey with breast cancer.
Interesting.
And she's got this incredible photograph. It's one of my favorite of hers. That's self-portrait, topless, and over the breast that was going to be removed the next day, it said in Sharpie property of Jo Spence ? And so that is kind of a canonical piece of modern photography or contemporary photography, and that wouldn't happen if not for critiquing the medical system. Her work is phenomenal. Anyway, so there's these debates, about what is actually the reciprocal role between art and medicine, and I try to, in my teaching and in my writing, like show both sides of it. Like, yes, art has been really important for the development of medicine and for understanding the body and surgical procedures, yada, yada, yada. But medicine has also profoundly influenced the history of art in its development and different movements, and you just have to maybe look for it a little bit more.
Sure.
But that's what that art and medicine class showed me.
That's how you got started on it.
Yeah. So they are intertwined things, even though they might feel very separate. Like when I tell people that I'm an art historian at a medical school, they're like, "What do you mean?
Right,
That's
yeah,
not
right, yeah.
that's not a job."
Yeah. Well.
What?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's sort of like ethics has sort of an obvious place, right? You know, but when you sort of move beyond ethics, maybe there's more questions and things.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
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 But it doesn't.
On this question of identity, or maybe identity is not the right word. Maybe I jumped there. But on facial imagery, I guess, and things like that. Can you talk a bit about that? Like, what have you learned about facial imagery, and how does art help us understand that? You know?
Yeah, I think I only recently realized that I am kind of obsessed with the face. And again, maybe that has something to do with, I mean, maybe that has something to do with the fact that I was trained in art history, and portraits are so vital, you know?
Yeah.
So maybe that's what I'm looking for. But, I mean, I think just focusing, even just in terms of patient imagery, like focusing on patient faces can tell you so much in drawings and in photographs, and that's kind of where my research sits. And so with the first book, putting plastic surgery on paper, I say first book as if I have a second one, but my...
Well, you will. You will.
The book that just came out.
Yeah.
That's focusing on kind of... I was really fascinated by what it meant to sustain a facial injury and how artists dealt with that, like, very kind of identity-shattering pathology, if you call it that, injury. And then how these, the way that art kind of helped to build up this narrative that surgeons could fix that. You know, it was kind of this miraculous, a lot of times, especially in the photographs, you really only have a before and an after.
Yeah.
And so if you're only looking at the patient's face with an injury and then with just some scars, there's kind of this false narrative that some of the artists are doing at the behest of the surgeons of like, oh, look at how easy this was. Right?
Yeah.
Look at this face before and look at this face after. Then there are other, and that's mostly with photographs, but then you'll have artists who are drawing who get more of that messy middle.
Is it that you feel like there would be an idealization of medicine? Is that it?
A sense of, and a lot of these,
Uh-huh.
like the photographs that I was just had in my head, they were used on kind of these propagandistic lecture tours that these surgeons would take. So like they would bring, so this famous plastic surgeon, Harold Gillies, brought his photographer and the photographs with him on this tour of the Americas.
Oh, I see.
To kind of be like, okay, look at all this stuff that we're doing. This was also when the U.S. was not in the war yet.
Yeah.
So it was kind of, it was an interesting kind of moment. And so art was vital in that. I mean, the fact that this surgeon was like, no, I'm bringing my photographer with me.
Yeah.
For this 2-month tour.
Yeah.
3 months? Yeah, I think it was 3 months. Kind of, that's case in point, right? It's like, okay, art was actually really important for these kinds of narratives. And again, that's focusing on the face and kind of, you know, we read so much emotion. That's where emotion comes from, right? That's how we can try to get a sense of what other people are feeling and how we recognize people.
Yeah.
And so I feel that depictions of the face are particularly powerful and affecting, whether it's a patient or otherwise.
Yeah.
But
it's related to identity. It's related to our relationships.
Yes, absolutely. And so that's where I kind of, you know, I read that article junior year and I stuck to this kind of theme just because I found it so fascinating. And, you know, there's a lot about gender in the way that our faces are portrayed, again, as patients or otherwise, but like the facial injury patients, it's fascinating to see like the men still wearing ties, like when they come in, or the women putting on lipstick even though they have a facial injury. And then I find that really, really interesting, kind of looking beyond what medicine wanted with these images, and analyzing the images as a whole can tell us a lot more about, again, the medical narratives, but also what these patients might have been experiencing or trying to put forward when oftentimes it's impossible to know exactly what that was.
Yeah. The lipstick thing is kind of interesting in terms of gender. I mean, I feel like in COVID, like that became really important for a lot of women, like I guess I haven't read anything about it, but I just seem to notice in an anecdotal kind of way that people put on darker lipstick
Yeah.
maybe or something,
Yeah.
or I don't know, like.
There's a project in the UK. It used to be called About Face, but I think it has a different title now. And one of their blog posts was about exactly this during COVID.
Was
like
it darker?
putting on makeup.
Or maybe that's the wrong word.
Yeah, no, but like brighter, like putting on makeup
brighter.
for Zoom meetings, or thinking that you put on makeup for yourself, and then during COVID realizing that you actually don't put on makeup, and like, okay, that was a lie you were telling yourself. If you're not seeing anybody else, you don't put on makeup. So what does that mean?
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah,
which I find fascinating. And so this is also something I'm really interested in. I'm working on mostly reconstructive plastic surgery, but obviously there's overlaps with the cosmetic there, and so these kinds of histories of
I see.
beauty and cosmetic surgery are also it's something I would like to work on more.
Yeah,
really
and I know you also do a lot of work for dentistry. Co-president of the National Collaborative for Humanities and Ethics in Dentistry. Mm-hmm. Did you feel like that came about because of the facial stuff, or just because you're at Rochester? And
no, I think it's very much the face.
Very
thing.
much the face.
Yeah.
Because I imagine a number of people in the department could have volunteered for it, but you did.
Yeah,
right?
and
Right?
I at first I was like, what's the connection here?
Yeah.
Am I interested in dentistry? And then I started thinking about it, and I was like, oh my gosh, thinking, so much of the plastic and reconstructive surgery that I wrote about in the book is also dental surgery. You have a bullet go through your face, and you're going to need a whole team that includes dentists and surgeons. I was like, oh, well, that's an obvious link. And then also working on this thing about dental phantoms, which maybe this is a tangent, but there are these kind of dummy heads that were used to train dentists in the 20th century, and they're now being sold as art objects. But there are these massive gaping teeth and then no other facial features. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't say I'm a historian of the face. There are people who definitely deserve that title, but obviously it's been something that I'm really interested in. I was like, oh my gosh, why is this horrifying? This kind of like open mouth with perfect teeth and then no other facial features. And I was like, okay, here I am again thinking about and writing about the face and like what it means.
Perfect teeth, but nothing else?
Well, okay, so there are some, in the early 20th century, there are some models that would come with a set of perfect teeth, a set of teeth with all with cavities, and then a set of like ones with fillings or caps. And so you could mix and match your teeth as you needed. Yeah. But anyway, the mouth is still the face. Like,
yeah.
And so being able to think about the role of the mouth in dental education, and I argue these dental phantoms are actually pretty terrifying. So also the role of the face and the mouth in like fear and horror is also something I'm really interested in. But it always seems to come back to the face.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And then, so if it's the mouth with dentistry and that kind of history that I'm looking at, it's with this other project I'm working on, it's all about the eyes, which is, anonymity in medical photography. And so why so many times throughout history has it been assumed that covering up the eyes means that you can't recognize that person anymore is something that is fascinating to me. And again, it's just another part of the face, but there's another, I keep coming back to that.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, why is covering up the eyes enough?
And it's not.
And it's not. Yeah, right, sure.
There's, when I talk about that project and anonymity in medical photography, I often show these pictures from a medical journal article from, I think, 1989, where they've got a picture of Michael Jackson and a picture of Ronald Reagan with their eyes covered. And the point is, you still know exactly who that is.
Oh, that's funny. That's really funny.
And so I'll put that up on the screen. And I know it's a little bit dated now, but people still know.
Yeah, I guess we could do it with Taylor Swift.
Yeah,
now, right?
exactly.
Yeah, like, who is this?
Exactly. And it's like that idea that like a celebrity walking around with dark sunglasses isn't recognizable. Like, that's not true.
Yeah.
And so I'm really interested in that kind of assumption that ebbed and flowed throughout the history of medical photography, that worked ever. And yeah, again, the face.
Yes, yes. Well, okay. So you get interested sort of through all of this through the art and medicine class at Georgetown, and then you decided to go to grad school.
Yeah.
At University of London.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the work that I was doing for my undergraduate thesis was British art and medicine, and so I was like, well, I should do a master's over in the UK. That's where my source material is. That's what I seem to be interested in. So I'll do that. And I thought I would only be there for a year, and I thought I would come back to the US for a PhD, and I ended up staying in the UK for 6 years.
Yeah, wow.
Which, again, was great because all of my archives were there.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Well, you were in London all that time?
I was in London that whole time.
Yeah.
I had a couple postdocs after the PhD that were in other places, but I lived in London the whole time. And yeah, so my master's was at the Courtauld Institute of Art, which is almost exclusively art history. They also do art conservation. So I was really, really immersed. Like, all of my classmates were all wanting to be art historians. Those are the only classes, the only speakers. So I was really, really immersed in that for a year. But then, and I knew I liked art and medicine and thought, I was like, oh, this is more interesting to me. But then that year, all of my papers kept being about medicine. And, through various angles, like, no matter what the prompt was, I ended up going, like, I think my first one was about, like, people in asylums and the art that they created. And then I did one on, like, a modern artist's surgical drawing.
You mean inpatients in asylums?
Yeah. In like in the 19th century.
But they were creating art. Okay, interesting.
And they were kind of the ones that this is going back a while, so I'm not trying to remember. But they were these kind of like cartoons that critiqued the asylum that they were in.
Interesting.
With all these like big word bubbles and. Yeah, it was really fascinating. And so, yeah, all of my papers kept coming back to medicine.
Yeah.
And that's when I was like, okay, for my PhD, I should go somewhere that... by then, I knew what the medical humanities was.
Yeah.
And that it was, especially in the UK, this growing field. There are a lot of medical humanities departments in the UK.
And they're pretty arts-based over there.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's not as much attached to medical schools.
Right.
It's in... like humanities departments or in humanities schools. So that's when I ended up going to Birkbeck, which is another college within the University of London. So both the Courtauld and the Birkbeck are part of the University of London. And so I went there and I had a phenomenal PhD supervisor, Susanna Biernoff, who had written on First World War facial injury. And that's when I started my project on Second World War facial injury that became the book.
Right, yeah. And so while you're doing grad school and the postdocs and things like that, you started a podcast over there?
Yeah,
Is that right?
yeah. With my dear friend and brilliant art historian, Emma Merkling. I don't even remember how it started. I think she's an art historian who also looks at histories of science, and I'm an art historian of medicine, and so we were like, let's do something with science and medicine, art and visual culture, and then we're both into horror. So we're like, okay, so it'll be science and medicine, art and visual culture, and the macabre. And so then Drawing Blood was birthed. Drawing Blood. Yeah, I can't take credit for that title.
Yeah.
As soon as we heard it, Em and I were like, oh, it's perfect.
Yeah.
And so, I remember how it started. Emma messaged me and she was like, we were in the midst of our PhDs, like I think towards the end.
Yeah.
And she was like, I'm driving myself crazy with focusing on this one narrow topic that I'm trying to finish my dissertation.
Yeah.
I really miss being able to explore other things. Like if we did a podcast together.
Interesting.
We could explore other topics that we're interested in beyond.
Yeah, beyond your dissertation.
Beyond our dissertation topic. And I was like, that sounds great.
Yeah. And was your grad school model, was it like the typical UK thing, like no grad seminars? You just go go straight to the dissertation? And
right. So I had all my most of my grad seminars in my master's program.
Yeah.
And then, we had we had a couple of things in the first few years, but it was mostly like you are thrown straight into the research, which is really hard.
It is. It's very hard. It's very hard. Yeah, completely different model.
Oh, and I definitely struggled, especially my first year of my PhD. I was like, what am I do? How am I supposed to do this? I'm supposed to produce, 100,000 word piece of original research,
right?
And I've just been thrown into this.
Yeah.
But again, Susanna was incredible, and she was like a very holistic supervisor. He was like, okay, this is going to be really hard. You have to make sure you have other things in your life, that you're not just driving yourself mad with, being in this facial injury archive and plastic surgery archive over and over for hours and hours, which was very helpful to have that advice.
And so you have this podcast.
Yeah.
And you've created like one or two other podcasts. You got 3 podcasts or something like.
So. I feel like such a millennial. Like, oh yeah, I've got all these podcasts, which is such a cliche. But yeah, so Drawing Blood.
They're better than this one.
No. But so Drawing Blood is just me and my friend Emma. Just talking about, like, each of us would bring kind of a topic that we had done a deep dive in.
I've listened to a couple.
Oh, great. Okay. So, like, we had one on dental phantoms, and that's what got me into that bit of research. We have a couple on horror films that we wanted to talk about. And so that was just me and my friend doing deep dives and just, like, talking about things that we wanted to expand our knowledge on, and that maybe would eventually turn into other projects, like writing projects. When so after my PhD at Birkbeck, I had a couple of, I think, 2 years of different postdocs and kind of cobbling things together, and then I had a 2-year postdoc at Johns Hopkins in the History of Medicine department, and I did a podcast there too, and so that was called For the Medical Record. I think they've just restarted it with the new postdocs, which is great, and it's kind of still going. And that was an interview-based podcast, kind of like this one, with folks who came to Hopkins to speak, or with people from the department.
I see. Yeah.
Oh no, it wasn't out of History of Medicine. Actually, it was technically out of the Center for Medical Humanities and Social Medicine. So it was anybody who. So it was more medical humanities, not just History of Medicine. And that was great. I did that with my fellow postdoc. And then now at Rochester, I have like kind of a pedagogical podcast, I would say. It's called In the Same Vein, which that I can't take credit for that title either. That's my brilliant medical student, Bella. She came up with that. And so that is, I know, In the Same Vein. And so that, our shtick is that it's, medicine, bioethics, and health humanities all run in the same vein. So it's,
all right.
And so that I do with students of ours who are either medical students or in our master's program of health humanities and bioethics, or like we've had PhD students from the philosophy department do it. And so I'll meet with the student, get a sense of what they're interested in. I've also got a list of recently published health humanities and bioethics titles, and then we'll pick something to read together. We'll interview the scholar together.
Oh, the actual scholar.
Yeah, the actual scholar who wrote the thing that the student is interested in.
You, the student, and then some.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
Yeah, like I see, you've got Danielle Ofri's When We Do Harm.
Right.
She was our first.
Oh, she's the first one.
Yeah,
oh, okay.
I see it on your shelf.
Yeah.
She was the first episode.
Yeah.
And again, my student Bella.
Yeah.
She was like, I'm really interested in this idea of medical error.
Yeah. Well, that's really generous that Ofri would do that.
Oh, absolutely. I know. I was so pleased that she agreed to it.
Yeah.
I was like, it's the first episode.
Right.
So I can't show you anything to show you that this is a real podcast. But and she was wonderful.
Yeah.
And so that's been a lot of fun because, I didn't want to do the same
thing.
Things that I'd done at Hopkins or with Drawing Blood. And so it's also such a learning curve. Like I just taught myself how to do all of it, and there's still definitely things that I could do better. I'm not the most tech savvy person in the world, so podcasting can be frustrating in that sense. But it's a lot of fun, and it's just a different way of, you get so many. In Drawing Blood, especially, we get so many more listens to one of those episodes than I would get readers of an academic article.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah,
and so, and, folks who would never read an academic article of mine, who are in, tons of different fields, all get comments from them or feedback.
Yeah.
I know of a couple of dentists who listen to my Dental Phantoms episode. And so, it's a more public-facing medium.
Yes.
And, I'm not talking like thousands and thousands of people, but, it's still, it feels a bit more visible, and especially getting this kind of seemingly niche topic of the intersection of art and medicine out there. I'm happy if more people realize that is baked into the medical system.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a remarkable position that you have. I mean, maybe the first art historian at a medical school. I'm not sure. Lots of historians, of course, lots of literary people, and lots of philosophy and ethics people, of course. So what has that been like for you? This is you've been there now for about 2 years.
Almost 2 years, yeah.
So what's it been like teaching in a clinical context?
It's amazing. It really is my dream job, which I wouldn't have known. When I was.
Yeah.
I didn't know a job like this might exist when I was taking that art and medicine class when I was in grad school.
Yeah.
And it really is phenomenal. I love teaching med students. I think sometimes they think maybe my classes or my lectures are a little bit out of left field, and then I love hearing when they are like, oh no, actually this is really important. This is, we look at visuals all the time. These are really, these are, knowing this history helps me understand the biases that I might have about different representations of bodies or the way that bodies are represented.
Well, I mean, that's actually a really good point. I mean, so much of medicine is visual, right?
Yeah. And yet we don't talk about that very much.
Right.
And so that's kind of my crusade, I guess, is to kind of get this idea more out there, especially to trainees. So it's been really great. I get to teach, classes for master's students, history of the body and visual cultures of health and medicine, and then some of the classes that I teach for medical students are I did a surgical horror film class, which was a lot of fun. And then I'm about to start a class on histories and ethics of medical photography.
Oh, okay.
And it's just, I really enjoy it. And I've definitely learned to, being in a medical school is very different from being in an art history department. And so I've definitely learned to kind of communicate my work in a different way, which I think is really useful. I mean, it goes back to that, needing to learn how to be a good writer, right?
Yeah,
it's just a different kind of style of writing and speaking. And
what do you feel like the difference would be? Is it?
It's more structured.
It's more structured.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's I never had to do learning objectives before being in a medical school. And it's actually really helpful to think, okay, what actually are the objectives of what I am trying to teach here?
Right, yeah.
But that's not a hugely revelatory concept, but, it's very different from, art at an art history conference. You might be more narrative or more kind of associative, and much more, theoretical, really deep in the theory. And I like that I'm constantly thinking of, okay, what are the applications? Not that that's the only reason to be looking at these art, but okay, what are the applications and how might this be useful? And what am I actually trying to, what are the objectives that I'm trying to reach here?
Yeah. I mean, do you have the sense that, you are trying to help them be better doctors and better clinicians?
I do, yeah. Especially when I'm talking to them about how these pieces of art or pieces of visual culture exist within the culture in which their patients exist.
Yeah.
Okay, these are the things that your patients might be seeing, or the kind of assumptions or biases about medicine that they might have. And so if you're not thinking about that, then you're not realizing what your patient might be feeling when they're coming into a room with you.
Yeah.
And that really bore out in my surgical horror class, right?
Yeah.
Horror is a huge genre, and surgeons tend to be villains, and so
in the film.
Yes, sorry, in the films, that's important. And so, what can watching those films and really dissecting them, seeing how they or what bits of medical history they're drawing from, seeing what the aesthetics around the surgeon are. That can help us to see like why patients might be afraid of surgery or surgeons. And like placing it into that wider cultural context, I think is really important, and I hope helpful for students.
Yeah. When the surgeon is being represented as a villain, are these historical films or contemporary?
So the earliest one that we looked at in the most recent surgical horror class was Eyes Without a Face from 1960.
Okay.
Which is about a surgeon who... Do I spoil it? Yeah. Okay. It's an old movie, so if you haven't seen it yet, that's kind of... It's about a surgeon who is... His daughter has, again, facial injury. His daughter was in a car accident. I think it was his fault. And so he is kidnapping women who look like her and transplanting their faces onto her to try to...
Restore her.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's old. And then the most recent one that we looked at was 2022, David Cronenberg. So this is a really well-established trope in modern film.
Yeah.
But that helps to show students how entrenched this is.
Yeah.
Surgeons are kind of an easy villain. Like they're
Yeah.
scary to cut into someone's body, and
Right.
Oftentimes the stereotypes is that they're emotionally detached.
Yeah.
Which has certain similarities to the way that sociopaths are depicted, and so it's like an easy trope.
Right. I guess I see it. There was the wildly successful podcast, Dr. Death, was a surgeon, the neurosurgeon, and I think it was around the Dallas area or whatever, and he really was a bad actor and all that, so that's interesting.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But we also have the hero, like down here in Texas, we have Denton Cooley,
right?
The hero of heart surgery and Michael DeBakey and things
Yes.
kind of like that. So we have these heroes, and then
absolutely.
But maybe in film, there's just not as much of
there is both. I mean, I could have done a whole class on heroes and villains in surgery, but it was just horror. Well, it's also a short class, so maybe. But there's a great book by historian of surgery Agnes Arnold Forster called Cold Hard Steel, and it's myths of the modern surgeon, and it talks about this kind of these filmic and literary representations of surgeons, positive and negative, and how the stereotype might keep some people out of the profession.
Yeah.
It's also surgery has historically been overwhelmingly male and white, and so what does that mean for what people picture as the surgeon? And that was actually one of our most recent episode of In the Same Vein was an interview with Agnes Arnold Forster.
Oh, really?
So so people can listen to that too. I was lucky that a student was interested in this, which is also something that I'm very interested in. But anyway, I think that those kind of the cultural perceptions as facilitated by visual culture is really helpful to show medical students.
Yeah. So back on to the thing about you sort of being in a medical school, trying to make people better doctors. So there's an instrumental kind of feature there, right?
Yeah.
Would you say, like in a regular art history department, do you feel like they have that same concern that they're trying to make, I don't know, I guess who's just a regular student?
Yeah.
You feel like it's just theory for the sake of theory, knowledge for the sake of knowledge, or is there an instrumental kind of goal there as well?
No, I think there still is definitely an element of art history as instrument to, for critical thinking and slow looking and observation, it is so vital. And for understanding just who we are as humans in the world, and the ways that we have understood ourselves. I think that is also a really vital element of quote unquote straight art history, right?
Yeah. So it'd be sort of more like fitting kind of like classic liberal arts kind of education. Educating the whole person,
right?
Making a person a good citizen for society or something.
Yeah, and I think that's just as vital. It's just that being in a medical school, it's like, that's a post undergrad, and so we're a little bit more specified.
Focused.
In
the
focused.
vocation.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah.
But my art history classes taught me so much.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I like the question because it's, where do you teach? Why are you teaching? How is the material affected by your location? And, one of my mentors, Tom Cole, he said when he started out down in, UTMB, so he's trained as a historian, and it's sort of early medical humanities, writes about the history of aging, cultural history of aging, And so when he's sort of, a young historian, maybe before he gets his job at UTMB, or right when he's sort of early there, he's kind of like a young radical. He's a young Marxist, and he just wants to criticize everything, tear everything down, and he's a product of the 1960s, and so but he's at UTMB, and he's teaching clinical people, interacting with clinical people, and eventually, like, it dawns on him, it's like, well, we got to help these people, like, they have real problems that they're trying to figure out, and we have to provide some kind of help or answer to them. And he was like, whenever I was just a grad student in a history department, it was like, this was all theoretical, and we were just critiquing everything. You know what I mean? Like, we thought we were doing social justice or something like that. But like in the clinical thing, it's like, no, we actually have to help.
Right. Yeah, and I think I did. As my career progressed, that became more apparent in the spaces that I was in. Coming from an art history department at Birkbeck to then some postdocs in health humanities departments
at Hopkins
in humanities schools in the UK, and then to Center for Health Humanities or Medical Humanities and Social Medicine at Hopkins.
Yeah.
There is a progression. Just I kept moving one step closer to clinical.
Yeah. And so do you feel like, and you felt that, can you feel that difference?
Yeah, I can. Yeah. And like, I will still write things for art history audiences, but I do love, it's almost, and I don't mean this in a negative way, but it's almost like I'm constantly needing to prove the worth of my work.
Yeah, I understand that.
Which is a good thing, I think. I'm constantly like, okay, where does this fit here? And how, the most disinterested med student, how can I get them to see that this is actually really vital to how they are going to practice medicine, how they're going to see patients, and how their patients are going to see them. I find that a really, fascinating intellectual exercise, almost. So selfishly, it's also really fun for me to be like, okay, no, where am I fitting in here? Yeah. And how's my work? Which is fun.
Yes. I understand. I understand. It's like I made a similar journey. And that makes complete sense to me.
I was teaching a seminar with a neurologist and
co-teaching.
Yeah, co-teaching. Actually, the diving bell and the butterfly, which I also see on your shelves over there. And I was talking about this, like, I keep moving closer to the theoretical or to the clinical. And he was like, "Well, you're still young enough. You could go to med school. You should do it." And I was like, "Okay,
right, yeah.
I don't. We're gonna not. I've done enough school.
Right, yeah, that's it. Yeah.
I think I can hold off." He was like, "It'd be so great. You could be doing it and teaching it and doing it." And I'm like, "We're not."
Right. Yeah.
It's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
It's not gonna.
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah. So, narrative medicine, right?
Yeah.
So you go back to your sort of college days. You do English, you do art history. So like today, narrative medicine obviously is huge. Art history, very important, doesn't have quite the same sort of space or, sort of in the field and all that. But if you had to compare narrative and medicine and art history, you kind of embody both. Yeah. But what do you feel like art history, I guess just can you compare and contrast them? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that they have a lot of, they're obviously one is written and one is visual. I guess the written word is also visual, but, they're different products that you're looking at, but I think a lot of the methods are the same. In literature, you're doing a lot of close reading. You're kind of picking things apart. You're analyzing really slowly and really closely, like word by word. History of art is the same thing, but with things on walls or on pieces of paper, right? You're also doing close reading, but instead of being called close reading, it's visual analysis. And some of those tools are the same. You're slow looking, you're close looking, you're picking things apart, you're analyzing. That's the same in both.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think that the kind of, thinking about narrative medicine as practiced by doctors, it's also kind of this way of working out things that have happened to you and to your patients and sorting through the emotions of the medical realm. That also happens in visual art. Doctors have also turned to visual art production to kind of work through what has happened in the medical realm or happened with their patients and work through the emotions. Like there are examples of plastic surgeons who, like I was just looking at an article, I think from the early 2000s of, this plastic surgeon who painted all these paintings of the fire that burned his patients, like kind of working through this.
Oh, wow.
And so, again, there's that kind of like emotional tether to both of them that's really important.
Yeah.
And, we ignore those needs for emotional output in art at our peril.
Yeah.
And so looking at visual art and narrative medicine are both kind of staying attuned to that side of medicine in a really important way.
What about a difference? Like, what does art give us that the written word doesn't?
Sorry, I'm just thinking. There's
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember the examples, but there's so Virginia Woolf and her sister Vanessa Bell, who was a painter, had this debate, and I'm trying to remember what they
interesting
came to.
Yeah.
So that's where my brain went.
Yeah.
Again, historian of British art, so I immediately go over there.
Yeah.
I think it's the materiality, really, of art. Like, these are objects. I mean, books are too, but
Yeah,
you're looking at the word.
A different way.
Yeah.
It's a different way. Yeah.
But these artworks are objects, and so they exist in space in a different way.
Yeah.
And so whether an artwork is on a wall or in a notebook or is like tiny and can fit in your pocket or is massive and has to be carried by 4 people, that can tell you a lot about the culture or the person who made it or who bought it or who was promoting it in some way.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really interesting element of
Yeah. Yeah.
art. And you experience it in a different way. Like, you're in a space with an artwork.
Yeah.
Like, we do art and observation
at the museum.
Yeah, at the museum at the University of Rochester, and it's so important that you are with the object in the space, seeing the other things that are around it, noticing like the way that brushstrokes are laid on top of one another, and how does that bring your attention to like the eyes or the hand or other parts of the canvas.
Right.
And obviously, I'm a big nerd about these kinds of things, so I love kind of like the materiality of these art objects, and I think that's one thing that you can't get with reading literature. Although I love, I love that experience too. But I think that's one of the big differences.
Yeah, I mean, I think that like for instance, like seeing a photograph of Rothko is not the same thing as being in front of a Rothko, right?
Right, and I try to impress this on my students.
Yeah.
Like when I'm teaching my master's students, I bring them into the special collections first thing in the semester, because a lot of them will have never been with these objects or in archives or and like the emotional effect is, especially when you're looking at medical art.
Yeah.
Like if you're just scrolling through images of patients on your computer, that's a totally different thing from like having those objects in front of you. Like I'm taking my med student to the clinical photography collection at Rochester at the end of our medical photography class, and it'll be really interesting seeing them in there after having like all these slides essentially. And like how that's different, because to me it's a totally different emotional experience. Like it's almost overwhelming.
And back to your sort of story about the plastic surgeon painting the fires. Like, I mean, I could see that being a completely different emotional experience for the plastic surgeon if they wrote about it versus painting it, because like you said, the materiality or the physicality of for me, I guess I'm just associating here or something, but like the physical act of touching, like that there must be something about selfhood and touching, where I can see the self being sort of more embodied in the object of the art than in the written word. Really.
I think so. I think, and that's, definitely ties in with what I was saying about materiality. Like you can, with brushstrokes, you can see where the hands of the artist were.
Yeah.
Like so clearly. You can see like they actually went along this line or, I mean, not in all art, but.
Right. In some sense, they're still there.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Or like, or there's this Jackson Pollock at the Big Art Museum in Buffalo near Rochester, and one of his matches was dropped in the middle. And I think about that all the time. It's like that's part of him that's still there.
Right.
And like, I think even if it's not as obvious in other pieces, like I think there's an element of that.
Right.
And
it's not the same with a printed book.
Right.
If somebody you have their actual journals or something like that from the archive.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's also the historian obsession, right? It's like the real thing, right? I want to be as close to my historical subject as possible, and I think art allows you to do that more.
Yeah. Well, one last question for you. Mm-hmm. So a lot of what you write about is about art that is not in museums.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So. Yeah. So actually, a lot of people who work on stuff like I do will say I'm a historian of visual culture rather than a historian of art, because visual culture is more expansive.
Yeah.
I think it's all art and all incredibly valuable and deserves all the value that capital A art can ascribe to it.
Yeah.
Even if it's not something that'll be put on a wall in a museum. I am much more interested in cultural significance, even if it's only significant to one person or a group of people, than whether it's good or bad art, right? I love looking at bad art, like just, cartoons that are scribbled in a margin of a sketchbook that was, again, I'm thinking about my book about plastic surgery, but like, medical artist sketchbook that was in where the operating theater was, and just like her horrible little drawings of owls or gravestones or witches along the margins. I'm like, okay, what does that tell us about kind of what the general, for lack of a better word, vibe was here? Yeah. She's able to do these little scribbles and she's able to make these jokes. And, other people from the surgical team are able to also scribble in her notebook. And so, like, that shows us so much about camaraderie. And it's not good art. Some of the cards, some of them are good. But I'm not really interested in making that value judgment, even though I just did. I'm much more interested in teasing out, okay, what did that sketchbook and those cartoons mean for that group of people? And what can that tell us about surgery? What can we extrapolate about surgical culture from that? That's what really interests me.
Yeah.
If we only wrote about, again, this goes back to what I was saying about my undergraduate experience. So if we only wrote about like the Michelangelos of the world, there's so much more to it, and most of us will have so many more interactions with art that's not in museums than that which is.
Yeah.
And so that, as like a cultural historian, like that's so much more interesting to me.
Yeah, I mean, and it's interesting, I guess, to me from a broader medical humanities kind of perspective. It's kind of, how do we know things about surgery? What are the sources? What are the methods?
Yeah.
And these kinds of questions that you're asking are completely new, right?
I'd like to think so.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't think you have people thinking about the scribbling and notebooks and saying, like, what does this tell us about surgical culture? And so, I think that is I appreciate the creativity and the curiosity of it, and I admire your journey. You've been persistent, and
I've also had it's been so much fun doing all of this. Like, I just really love the materials that I'm working with, and like I feel like getting to know patients or artists, even though you can never truly know that. Like, I feel like I'm really getting to something that hasn't been talked about before.
Yeah.
Which is a really fun feeling for me.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, this has been an absolute delight.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, and all the best to you.
Thank you.